Garrison and Rally have always been a major part of Rise of Kingdoms. Ever since the dawn of the game, there has always been a Garrison and a Rally meta, but over the last few years, I've been noticing Lilith making slight changes to commanders, which make it much more difficult for most players to even consider being a Rally or a Garrison player. So today, I'll be discussing the issues with the Rally and Garrison meta, and finally, what needs to really change with the meta so that it does become more player-friendly, not necessarily pay-to-win, not necessarily free-to-play, just better for all players. So if you want to know what's happening with the Garrison meta at the moment, the sneaky changes Lilith has been making to these commanders, and what needs to change, you definitely want to check out the rest of the video. Let's begin with some base issues that have been plaguing the Rally and Garrison for a few years now, and I think that these are important to give some context as to why Rally and Garrison is already difficult to enter into before it's been shifted and made more difficult over the recent years. And there is no mistake as to why I'm in the Crystal Tech section. Crystal Tech is one reason Rally and Garrison is difficult to get into. First of all, Crystal Tech is expensive. I think to max your Crystal Tech every season is around $500 if I'm not mistaken. And even then, most players can't afford that. That's every season. You have to spend $500 and then you have to do it again the next season and again the next season and again the next season just to be a Rally or Garrison, which doesn't get you that many kills. Yes, it's good for your kingdom, but most players, you're not going to get many kills from being a Rally or Garrison. You're just going to get a ton of deads and you're going to have spent a ton of money on Crystal Tech, which you can't carry over to the next season. And the issue with Crystal Tech is it's not too bad if you don't have max tech for the open field. Obviously, you're going to get wrecked if a max tech player hits you, but in Rally or Garrison, if you get wrecked once, you get wrecked hard. You're taking hundreds of thousands of deads compared to an opponent who might only be taking 200,000. You may take 400,000 deads, which you do not want. In the Rally or Garrison meta, you want to keep players joining your Garrison. You want to keep up players' troop numbers so that they can actually join your Garrisons. And if you're losing by massive numbers, and you're killing a bunch of players' troops to the point where you're running out of troops and they're running out of troops, A, no one's going to want to join your Garrison, so your Garrison gets left empty and the flag burns, and the same thing can be said with rallies, and B, players run out of troops and then you just lose the KVK. So having max Crystal Tech is important, but extremely expensive, and some of the most important Crystal Tech for rallies, such as improved morale, same thing for Garrisons, improved morale is also really important, and then also Surprising Strike for the rally meta is extremely expensive to get. Surprising Strike is literally at the end of the tree. Like, it is so far in the end that it is super difficult. You have to max pretty much everything before this to even consider getting Surprising Strike. And then Improved Morale, I never get past like 4 in a KVK, and that's like the end of the KVK after I've grinded the whole season, because it is so expensive as well. And those are probably the two most important techs for a Garrison. It's Improved Morale, and for Rally, it's Surprising Strike. So right off the bat, two of the most important techs are all the way at the end. They're going to cost a ton of money to get to, and they're really, really difficult to maintain. So by making Crystal Tech such a vital part of Rally or Garrison, we've already narrowed down the amount of people who even consider doing it to like maybe 6 or 7% of people who max Crystal Tech. And that is a really, really small number. And in smaller kingdoms, that's even lower, because smaller kingdoms don't usually have as many whales who are willing to max Crystal Tech every KVK. So in smaller kingdoms, maybe 1% of players are willing to be a Rally or Garrison, and then the whole KVK pretty much relies on them. The next issue with Rally or Garrison is currently equipment. When we look at equipment, we've noticed that a lot of free-to players and low spenders have legendary equipment. That is not crazy. I know players who have full legendary sets. I personally have a full legendary set, and I don't spend too much money. But if you want to be in the Rally or Garrison meta, you don't just need a full legendary set. You need a full, almost talented, refined legendary set before you even consider becoming a Rally or Garrison player, and that is ridiculously expensive. Most players cannot afford to have full talented sets. I think I only know like 5 people I've ever met who have full talented legendary sets, and I've considered becoming a Rally or Garrison. Out of like 12 legendary pieces I've made, I've only ever gotten 1 talented piece, and that was Dragon Breath Tassets. And I can say, I have a really, really specialized account, really specialized into archers. I only make archer equipment, and I still have no shot at becoming an archer Garrison. So imagine players who are making mixed equipment for Cavs, infantry, and archers. How are they going to become a Garrison or Rally player when they've got mixed equipment for all the troop types? They haven't got a fully specialized account like mine, where I've only made equipment for archers, so I've had more chances to get better equipment. I can put together one mega set and then make weaker sets for open field. That's fine. But even I can't be a Rally or Garrison player. I've played for almost 3 years. My equipment is just not there. And then to add another issue to this, we've got new equipment coming soon. So all the players who do have talented equipment either have to spend again to get more talented equipment for their troop types, which will definitely be stronger, I can guarantee it. And then on top of that, anyone who wants to currently enter the Rally or Garrison meta it's pretty much completely out of the question. You want to do it, sorry about that, you can't, because it's going to be ridiculously expensive. And then when new equipment comes in, you're pretty much screwed, because then all your old talented equipment, which you've worked extremely hard to get, is now pretty much irrelevant, because you got to get this new equipment and you got to talent that instead. So you're pretty much screwed if you want to enter the current Rally or Garrison meta, and anyone who wanted to enter before already needed high equipment and high crystal tech. So once again, we've limited the player base even more. So now that we've limited the number of players who can do Rally or Garrison, probably down to 2 or 3% people who have max equipment and max crystal tech every KVK, let's limit it even more. And we're going to armaments. Armaments are a new thing in the game, and a lot of players do not have armaments at a level that is required to be a Rally or Garrison. A lot of players who want to do Rally or Garrison have armaments that are fully with those inscriptions, they've got full stats, whichever troops they want, and they spend absolute crazy amounts of money in the super value bundle section to get armaments. And on top of this, they've pretty much just removed what used to be the best value armament bundle, which was a Master's Tools, and they've replaced it with Weapon Whiz. Personally, I don't know how good this bundle is, but I'm going to presume it's going to be worse value. I don't think Lilith is down to give people more value for their money. So right now, to enter the armament meta is also extremely difficult, and it's not like there's any good value for armaments. There is nothing in the game where I would say anyone should go put their money in it if they want to invest in armaments and formations. It just does not exist, and the issue with that is there is no way for a free-to-play or a low spender, especially low spenders and medium spenders, to enter the Garrison meta, because you could enter a Garrison or Rally meta as a medium spender if you're an older account, you've got the talented equipment, and you want to spend a little bit on crystal tech. You could definitely end up in the meta, you could definitely keep up with players. But now that armaments are a thing, there's nowhere in the whole entire shop I could say is good value for your money for where you could get armaments and still remain as a low or medium spender, because at that point, you got to probably max buy some of these super value bundles, which are not super value, just spoiler alert right there. So right off the bat, really, really difficult to enter the armor meta, and then you need to get lucky on top of that. And even though we do have some transmutation stuff, which I do really like, the transmutation stones are really, really good, they don't fix the main problem of you need to get a good double inscribed armament first, and then you need to get good stats on it even after you transmutate it, which can be extremely difficult. Like, I got extremely lucky on this Epics of Olympia, and that was extremely, extremely lucky. And even then, this is not even up to a Rally or Garrison standard for most players, so it is extremely difficult to enter the current meta for Rally or Garrison in armaments, in equipment, and in crystal tech. This limits the number of players probably down to like 1% at this point. 1% of players are in a position to do proper Rally or Garrison. That's 1% of like endgame proper top tier accounts are down to do the Rally or Garrison meta, because they have to spend a lot of money and then maintain that spending and then also increase that spending once the new equipment drops. So there is now another issue with that. Now the next issue is the lifespan of Garrison and Rally commanders, and we'll start off with the Rally issue currently. Rally commanders throughout the life of the game have always had a short lifespan. I've never ever seen a Rally that stayed in meta for more than 2 years. I think the maximum I've seen is 2 years. Now it'd be some really dominant Rallies like Nebu, and then that's probably it actually. I think Nebu, and then there'll be like a cav version of him like Zhang Yu, and then there'll be an infantry maybe like Pakal, who stayed in the meta for around 2 years before they got replaced. But with recent additions of basically field commanders becoming viable in Rally, we've seen a lot of Rally commanders become replaced within 1 year. 1 year before a Rally commander and the full Rally meta completely shifts, and that is extremely expensive once again. And the only way to get all Rally and Garrison commanders currently in the game, the way they're releasing them, is through Mightiest Governor and Orotok Tavern, and most players are not doing that Orotok Tavern. It is ridiculously expensive and not very good value, and then to do the Mightiest Governor, it's difficult, and you've limited it once again down to even more whales. So a lot of people are just like, why would I do the Mightiest Governor to get Garrison commanders or Rally commanders? Now, for Garrison commanders, they're not as bad. I've seen Garrisons last around 2 years in the meta, on average, with a 3-year lifespan not being too crazy. For example, Zenobia, even though she's starting to fall out the meta, she held around a 3-year lifespan. And you can see there are way less Garrison commanders. Often the field commanders are not very good for Garrison, so the Garrison commanders do tend to hold their place for around that 3-year lifespan. But even recently, for example, with Heraclius, a very much generic Garrison commander, we saw him knock out a bunch of Garrison commanders on the meta, becoming a better version of them. For example, Jadwiga, Artemisia, and Zenobia took a major hit to their effectiveness, and then YSS took a major hit to his effectiveness, pretty much only becoming used for a Heraclius YSS Garrison, which is very average at the best. So right there, we pretty much just eliminated 4 Garrison commanders with the addition of 1 commander. So even Garrison can face major shifts in their potential within a very short period of time, but they aren't as bad as Rally commanders, because often field commanders don't end up in Garrison meta. Obviously, we've seen things such as DIDO and ZHUGE, that's like a given, but commanders usually are not very good in Garrison if they're in the open field, so most of the time we've seen the Garrison meta does last longer, but it is extremely expensive to enter the Garrison meta. So now that we know Rally and Garrison commanders are moving extremely quickly, the next issue, which is something that has been a little bit more subliminal and not as noticed, is that a lot of Rally and Garrison commanders, especially Rally commanders, are becoming more niche. We've seen over the last few years a lot of Garrison commanders and a lot of Rally commanders have pretty much just become only for Garrison and Rally and are not field usable. So I'll just give you an example. Out of every single commander I read here, I'm going to tell you which ones are field relevant. Nebu was field relevant, Gilgamesh was field relevant, Henry, Caesar, Frederick, Mehmed, Tamiris, Ragnar was not field relevant because he's a really bad commander, Saladin, Attila, Guan, Chandragupta, Harold, Zhang Yu, Pakal, Tariq. Now, you've noticed a lot of those commanders are all rallies, and when they were released or when they were in the game, they were used on the open field. So, right there, we had a lot of players who would invest in these commanders, A, as an open field commander, and then B, they would probably have enough equipment to consider being a rally or garrison, so that even if these commanders became irrelevant, they'd still be able to use them on the open field and get value from them. So that made them a good investment. And some of these commanders were literally the meta. For example, Guan Yu was a rally commander and always is a rally commander. And he used to be like the literal best infantry commander, the literal best commander in the game. Same thing with Attila, same thing with Zhang Yu, same thing with Harold. A lot of these commanders were really hard in on rally, but they were really, really good in the open field as well. And their rally was just a small bonus. So it made a lot of players go like, well, I've got the rally commanders. I've just invested in them over time because I needed them for the open field. I can be a rally player. That's not too crazy. So they might throw in a rally or two every now and again. They may even consider starting to become a little bit more specialized towards being rally. And since Crystal Tech is something some players can afford, and there was no armaments back then, and equipment, yes, you still needed it, but a lot of older accounts had it in a good position, players were like, okay, I've got the commanders for this, why don't I just become a rally player? Well, Lilith has been changing this. You may have noticed I read out a lot of the Garrison commanders, but a lot of modern ones weren't there. For example, I didn't mention Bertrand, and I didn't mention Justinian as the main two commanders which will stand out to you. I'm going to say Suleiman sucked for rally and open field, so he just gets like a wacky pass, like he's a weird commander, but we've just seen two commanders right there who are rally, who were really not good on the open field, and even Tariq and Henry themselves are not the best on the open field. They're very specialized. So what's the issue with them? Well, their kits have become more and more reliant on being in a rally. Justinian is a prime example of this, with two of his 5 skills being very much rally related. First of all, his active skill really needs him to be in a rally so he can get that defense reduction and also to add the surrounding effect. It does seem like this surrounding effect only works if he is the leader of a rally. So right off the bat right there, we've already got about 90% of his active skill value missing besides the damage factor. His second skill doesn't need rally, but his third skill, 10% of the normal attack, is missing here if he's not in a rally. So once again, he needs to be in a rally. And then of course, you've got this fourth skill, which relies on that active skill giving the extra surround bonus. So he needs to be in a rally for him to really benefit from that. So we've pretty much got a major rally dependency on Justinian, where for example, Guan has one skill that's rally related. And it's like, okay, it's good for the rally, but his open field capabilities are still very much there. As a commander by himself on the open field, he'll be fine, and he doesn't necessarily need to be in a rally to fully benefit. But we've seen commanders become more and more niche, where they're like, you have to be in a rally. And even commanders such as Tariq, who don't necessarily need to be in a rally, they're better in a rally pretty much because they have a ton of stats related to their rally skills, like a lot more than other commanders. Even though Tariq has 3 field-related skills, he has one really potent rally skill, and the same thing for Henry. Henry has 3 field-related skills, but one is very much rally-related, giving him 60% of stats, which he doesn't have. But if we look at some older commanders like Nebu, for example, Nebu has 99% of his value pretty much on his skills that aren't rally-related. Yes, his rally is going to give him 60% of stats, but a march speed reduction doesn't change much for the open field. The counterattack damage is really only for rally. You often don't find you're taking too much counterattack unless you're getting swarmed down. And this damage factor doesn't change too much. It is not necessary in his kit. So Nebu, prime example of a commander who was really good in the open field and really good in the rally. So a lot of players had Nebu. They ran Nebu with YSG, and that was a really good commander pairing. But compared to a commander like Justinian, who's so rally dependent, why would anyone go and invest in Justinian unless they plan to be a rally or garrison? Now, the same thing can be extended to the Garrison meta, and especially the Garrison meta, because it is probably the most prominent in the Garrison meta, where a lot of the Garrison commanders are Garrison commanders, especially the modern ones. We've seen DIDO, for example. She is a very much Garrison commander. She has 2000 damage factor, which is not up to standard, and then her debuff is Garrison related. Her third skill is pretty much completely Garrison besides a little bit of attack, and then her fourth skill is completely Garrison. So you've got 3 out of her 4 skills besides her expertise that are Garrison related, and then her expertise is also Garrison related because all you get is an extra like 10% attack. No, you don't get 10% attack. It's pretty much the exact same. She has to be in a Garrison for 4 out of her 5 skills. So why would anyone go and get DIDO unless they're going to be a Garrison? But why would you be a Garrison if you have to spend a ton of money to keep up with it? And even then you have to get lucky with Armaments to even stay in the Garrison meta. So Garrison meta is also in a bad position compared to like Isong, who has 1 Garrison related skill and the rest are open field. Some commanders here have 4 out of their 5 skills Garrison related and nothing open field. So why would anyone get them? It's beyond me. So yes, we've seen Garrison and Rally commanders be used on the open field in the past, especially commanders like Artemisia, YSG, and Minamoto. But nowadays, we've seen Lilith really specializing in those commanders, and this hasn't been a thing for the past. So we've seen a lot of commanders in the past really open field usable, but now these Garrison and Rally commanders just aren't there, so no one's going to invest in them if they can't use them on the open field. So that means less and less players are even interested in considering doing Garrison or Rally. So that brings me on to what does the Garrison meta need? And first of all, I can't say that it doesn't need equipment. I think that the armaments shouldn't play a big role in it, but that's also going to stay in the game, and Crystal Tech isn't going anywhere, and these issues are going to change themselves over time. Over time, players will get better equipment, players will get better Crystal Tech, and also better armaments. Most free-to-players and low spenders can achieve that. That is not impossible, but commanders are always changing, so what the Garrison Rally meta needs is more Garrison commanders and more Rally commanders, which are usable on the open field, because that will entice more players, even myself, to consider being a Rally or Garrison player. I have considered it since I am expertising Henry for the open field. And I can say most players who want to expertise a commander for the open field that is a Rally commander wants to get the most usage out of them. So me personally, I'm considering doing some Rally or Garrison stuff during my KVK once I expertise my Henry, who I purely did for the open field, but because he has a second usage, I'm considering it. But no one's ever going to go out of their way to go and get a Garrison or a Rally commander unless they're a big player, a big whale, a big spender. So what does Lilith need? Lilith needs to make Rally and Garrison commanders field usable. I'm not saying make them the meta and make them completely game breaking, which they could do because they've done it in the past with Guan, they've done it with Nebu, they've done it with Harold and Zhang Yu. It is not too crazy to make the Garrison commanders good. They just need to make the Garrison commanders good again. They don't need to make them just good for Garrison and just good for Rally. They should be good in most aspects of the game and shouldn't be so specialized, especially if you need to get them from the mightiest governor where you have to expend a ton of resources to get them. No one's going to do it if they're not usable on the open field and they're only there for Garrison. So to change the Garrison and Rally meta and to make it better, we need to make it so that these commanders are usable on the open field as well. Now, I'm curious to know your opinion. What do you think currently of the Rally or Garrison meta? Do you think it's in a good position? Do you think it's in a really bad position? And do you want more players to be able to do Rally or Garrison? Because personally, I think it's a fun part of the game. I've done it before, and even though it's going to give you deads and it's going to be expensive, whenever I do a Rally, I really enjoy it. So I'd be very much happy to see more and more players be a Rally or Garrison. I don't think it is that bad, and I think it's a healthy part of the game, but it is currently in an unhealthy state. So hopefully they change Rally or Garrison. That is my opinion. What is yours? Tell me in the comments down below. I'm very interested to hear. Your comments really do matter, and they help me come up with video ideas. Now, I just want to say thank you to see you in the next one.